Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. It's your boy TNL, and today, gambling is everywhere, it almost seems. Why is everything turning into gambling? Lately, I've noticed that gambling isn't just something that you see in casinos anymore, but it's in your phone. It's on your sports apps. It's on your prediction markets. It's in event trading. It's in ads during big games such as the Super Bowl. You can literally bet on elections. You can bet on inflation numbers. You can bet on the weather. You can bet on interest rates. You can bet on sports plays. You can bet on political outcomes. And it just doesn't even feel like gambling anymore. It just feels like you're participating in something that's normal. It's being normalized more and more and more within the days. And that's exactly why I'm here talking to you today. Here's the first thing to understand. The barrier to gambling has seemed to disappear, you know, and although there's an age requirement for certain things you have to gamble on, it almost seems like it's being pushed more and more and more publicly. Every single ad that I see on YouTube, it's either for Prize Picks, it's either for Kalshi, it's either for Underdog. It's literally just pushing and pushing and pushing. It's literally every other ad that I receive now. It used to require effort, I feel like, with that barrier. You had to go somewhere, you had to hand someone cash, you had to make a conscious decision. But now, two taps, it's frictionless, and when something becomes as frictionless as gambling like that, it becomes a lot more frequent within the days. And that changes your behavior. Second, it's becoming framed as an intelligent thing that people do, not betting or trading or, just a prediction market. You know, it's becoming like financial participation. Like everyone's doing it. Like it's just a normal thing that everyone does. And when you label something as investing, people can lower their guard. You know, it feels strategic to them. It'll feel more informed. It'll feel respectable since everybody's doing it. But at its core, it's, if the structure is you put your money down, the outcome is uncertain. Payout is based on probability. That's gambling. Even if it sounds sophisticated, it doesn't matter how you say it, but you're gambling at the end of the day. And here's why it's being pushed so aggressively, right? Because it works. Because it works. You know, Uncertainty sells. We live in a time where attention is fragmented and patience is low, very low. And people want fast money. People want to get rich quick. Inflation makes people very anxious. They think their dollar, well, it's not that they think their dollar is getting worth less and less. It is becoming worth less and less. So they're trying to fight against it as fast as they can in the ways that they think is, you know, the most possible for them. Social media tends to amplify this and glorify the quick wins. And you'll see people winning millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you think, oh, well, if it's that easy, then why don't I just do that? Gambling will compress hope, right? You don't have to wait 10 years. You could win tonight. You know, that psychological hook is extremely powerful and extremely dangerous, more dangerous than you would even think, especially when people feel financially behind and you feel like you're, in a race against the clock. And it feels like it's constantly ticking and ticking and ticking and ticking. There's also something deeper happening that I want to talk to you about. We've really just blurred the line between investing and speculation. With investing, it would be owning productive assets that generate value over time, right? And then the speculation of just betting on short-term outcomes when one will build, and one will predict and one will compound and one will spike. But modern platforms make them look similar, you know? Charts, numbers, positions, this type of market language. It feels more financial than before, right? It feels more similar to the stock market, but it's not. The behavior is more emotional. And now here's when it becomes dangerous. Not because gambling is automatically evil, but because it changes your relationship with money. You know, Instead of let me grow this steadily, it becomes let me win something really quickly tonight. And that shift will rewire your brain. It rewires your patience. It trains you to chase volatility, to check constantly, to react emotionally. And the more it becomes normalized, the more it blends into daily life for people. You're not going gambling, but you're just opening an app on your phone. You're just opening Kalshi, just opening Prize Picks. You're just opening an app. And that subtly matters because we know how addicting our phones can be. We know how addicting these things can be. So it can just multiply and become such a worse thing for you and your mental and your financial, upbringing. Another reason it's bad is because it monetizes uncertainty. Politics become a betting line. Economic stress becomes a market, and global tension will become a trade. So instead of engaging with reality thoughtfully, you're incentivized to root for maybe the volatility of something. That does something to culture though. It makes instability profitable, and that's not neutral. It's not normal. Now, let's be more balanced with things. Because some people treat it like it's entertainment and they set strict budgets. They don't let it spiral. But the industry isn't built on casual users who win consistently. It's built on you losing your money. It's built on volume, on engagement, on repeat behavior. If the average user consistently profited, then the business wouldn't scale. And that's just the simple math of it all. And I want to touch on the people promoting it. You kind of can't hate them for getting their bag. You can't, I feel like, because I feel like they're smart enough to know that it's not wise to bet as much money as I feel like somebody with a lesser pocket would. But I don't know, man. I don't know. Like it's just crazy, I feel like. The real issue is we're living in a society that increasingly gamifies everything. Likes, views, followers, stocks, crypto, sports, predictions. And life starts to feel like a scoreboard. And when money gets mixed into that scoreboard, then your dopamine will take over. And you're no longer building. You're chasing spikes. You're chasing big wins. You're chasing, you know, just making your pockets fatter. And spikes can be very addictive. Let me tell you the truth. Slow wealth is boring and gambling is very exciting, obviously. One can reward you discipline and one rewards probability of a win. And one builds your identity and one can build your impulse to do things. So if everything around you is pushing, for this kind of speed, discipline will become very rare in your life. And rare behavior becomes powerful. So when you see these ads, when you see these prediction markets trending, when you feel that pull towards fast outcomes, pause and think and ask yourself, am I building something or am I chasing this simulation that these people are pushing out to us? Because the difference between the two compounds over years. And that's what really shapes your life. Thank you for paying attention, and I appreciate y'all.